Hey, you are listening to Oh Crap Parenting with me, your host, Jamie Glowacki. This is a podcast for conscious parents who drop the F-bomb a lot. All right. If you're watching this on YouTube, I am doing my first podcast with my hair long. So I've been secretly growing my hair behind all my bandanas and my scarves and my beanies. And I was like, oh, I'm going to record a podcast with my hair down. So growing my hair has been funny because, first of all, I've always thought of this, like, what if we measured our time here on earth differently than age, right? Like, what if it were like how many hair grow outs you get? Because as women, I think we're always kind of vacillating between hair grow outs and cutting it shorter. And I love my hair short. I really do. I think it suits my personality. And I often I get sick of hair. I hate hair. I loved the 2 times in my life when I was bald. It's something I'm missing that girly feature that cares about hair. And I love, I don't love long hair sometimes on older women. Our hair, like my hair, I have gray. I'm not dyeing it. And I think a lot of people, like in my family, the hair gets mousy. It like loses its luster, but we don't go gray. We have strands of silver. I call mine tinsel. And I think it doesn't always look good. There's a reason older women cut their hair short. Number one, we stopped giving a fuck. Like, it's so bad, you guys, at 55. Like, I thought I wasn't giving an F beforehand, but now it's almost like I think I sound rude because I'm like, yeah, okay, if you don't want to do that, if you don't like that part about yourself, just stop doing it. Like, I say things really abruptly. But, when you hit menopause and you start these hormonal shifts, like your hair can get really thin and yucky. And so sometimes on older women, I don't love long hair because I feel like people hang on to the notion of long hair past its prime. Like if your hair looks like stringy and weird and thin, you're entitled to do whatever you want. But I just know so many women who are almost hide behind their long hair. So anyway, I'm growing mine out because I don't want to put shit in my hair anymore. And so my hair is funny. It like sticks straight up. It's kind of, when it's short, I have to put a lot of product in it. And I just haven't found any products that aren't like super gross. And I just feel like putting that on your head and sinking into your scalp every day isn't great. So anyway, welcome to my long hair if you're viewing this on YouTube. Today I want to revisit tantrums because I feel like a lot of fodder I get for this podcast is bullshit I see on Instagram. And you may not be seeing what I see. So these may not be of consequence to you, but I definitely see like, the algorithm is set up that if you even pause on a video, you get more of the same content. So I'll see this like influx of parenting stuff or sometimes potty training stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But tantrums, I'm seeing this like huge influx of people talking about don't ignore a tantrum. Just don't ignore a tantrum. And like all things on Instagram, a lot of these things have no nuance. They're a very short reel or a graphic or something like that. And I'll sometimes nose into the comments to see like, well, what are people saying? And the comments are always just wild, like both good and bad. And with this particular one, don't ignore a tantrum. I think this is getting mucked up with the huge amount of self-regulation, co-regulation, dysregulation. Everybody and their mother's talking about regulation. And a lot of people don't have the full scope of what they're talking about. I also, as I think I said it in the last podcast, I think it's like, consume your content wisely. Because I think it's good on social media. I think it's good to see the good and the bad, right? And I've talked about this before. Like, let's not lower the bar. Motherhood's hard. Parenting is hard. Kids can suck. Like this isn't the easiest job in the world. In fact, it's one of the hardest. I think you guys are at one of the hardest ages, right? And we also know, like, it's not peaches and cream and your kid's like not going to cook by themselves at 18 months and, speak Mandarin unless that's your native language when they're 2, you know what I mean? So I think we see like these both polar ends. And the reality is it's doable and hard every day, somewhere in the middle. And so take your content with a grain of salt, particularly if it's parents of young children who haven't gone through the ringer, because I think it's really easy. It's like the parent who's like, my child has only eaten a, exotic fruit that's organic and blah, blah, blah. And the kid's like 18 months. And you're like, yeah, okay, let's talk a little bit later on. I mean, I think it's great. Every kid should start off with good food, but we all know things change, right? So we also know, oh, my child slept through the night. And it's like, what, did they go through the 4-year-old sleep regression yet? So take your content wisely and, don't necessarily buy into people who are still figuring it out themselves. I think it's great that we share information, but I think it's very easy to think people are experts or they said something and you're like, oh, I should do that. Like I shouldn't ignore tantrums. So this big sweeping thing of don't ignore tantrums, again, comes, I think, from that, like, we should hold space. We should be able to, regulate and co-regulate with our kids who are dysregulated. But I think this deserves a lot more airtime. So first off, let's talk a little about the nature of tantrums. One thing is there are certain inherent features of kids, and some kids are more prone to tantrums than others. There are kids who don't tantrum. And don't let anybody kid you. That's very rarely parenting, especially when we're talking in the 16-month to maybe 30-month range, right? I'm giving a wide berth there. That is the age that they're figuring things out. They really have no emotional regulation. After that, we start teaching them things, both good and bad. We teach them that we might cave if they scream in the grocery store, right? So then they start learning that and refining that learning. And then we start teaching them also manners, or, hey, we have to be a little bit, we're around other people. Maybe we don't want to scream like that, so we start that sort of teaching. There are reasons for tantrums, and some of it is just really big emotions, right? But a large part of it is like hunger, overtired, and overstimulated. And that, of course, applies to that 16 to 30 month. They are wildly susceptible to losing their shit when those things are present. So you always want to make sure that your child is well fed, well rested, and we do what we can and not overstimulated. So as you guys know, and I'm just going to keep talking it, we need to pull back. And I think this is such a hard time. I mean, fucking groceries are so expensive. I know where I am in Rhode Island, I just looked at my electric bill. My electric bill has more than tripled. And it wasn't big, right? I've told you guys I have this tiny house with one bulb in every room. It went from, with no heat and no air conditioning, right? $40 a month, went to $180 a month. That's crazy. Is that triple or quadruple? So anyway, it's really, really hard. So this is and I'm not trying to minimize if you are struggling financially, but remember that we don't have to buy things for our kids. We don't have to buy those experiences. Some of the best memories we can make with our kids, particularly the under 6 crowd, is cooking together, movie night, doing things. They want you. They want your time. And so remember that when we're talking about tantrums, if your kid is prone to tantrums, check in. Are they overstimulated? Is there something in the environment that can be fixed? Are they going from activity to activity with very little rest time? Are they constantly falling asleep in the car? Those are all indicators, that they could be overstimulated. I would avoid any and all birthday parties that are out at big venues like Chuck E. Cheese, those kinds of things. Nothing against them. Well, yeah, I have things against them, but whatever. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But, those things that are Vegas for kids, lights and noise and those kinds of things. Now, those tantrums, when a kid loses their shit because of those kinds of things, right? Or now they might also have truly big emotional feelings. And it could just be, again, you cut the sandwich the wrong way, you peeled the banana, or you didn't peel the banana, you took the yogurt top off, or you didn't take the yogurt top off. All these things, when your kid throws themselves back, in our little guys, this is understandable. It's a big feeling. It overwhelms them. It floods their brain. It just is too much. And it is expected and developmentally appropriate completely. So in that range, in that group, we really do want to try to hold space. And this comes back to, did you do your work? Because it's hard to hold space, which I call extreme presence with inaction. You're not doing anything, right? You're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to fade it. We're just kind of maintaining with the child. And you need to be able to do that. But if you yourself are, I hear it all the time, I'm so triggered by his screaming. I'm so triggered by this, that, and the other thing. We've been talking about this in the last few episodes, right? That's a you problem. Yes, children are loud. Children are going to tantrum. Children are going to scream. Children are going to get dysregulated for a large amount of things. So it's not their job to be quiet. It's your job to figure out how this is happening and why this is happening. So in those cases, the 16 to like 30 months, you really want to have the ability to hold that space. And while I don't think you should ignore a tantrum, and this is where that kind of nuance comes in, I do think you shouldn't say anything. So recently I've had a lot of people reach out and say, well, I need a script when they're tantruming. I need something to say. Like, what should I be saying? You don't have to say anything. In fact, this is one of those situations, if you can just shut up, that's the better option and just be there. So I always recommend during a tantrum for this younger phase, you sit on the floor so you're there level, because it can be extremely threatening having somebody over you. Sit down on the floor and you can just hang out. And you can just, if you have to say something, it could be like, I'm right here when you need me. And it should be soft, just there. If they need a hug, if you advance on them, you can sometimes whisper, I see you're upset. Yes, yes. I'm right here if you need me. And that usually will de-escalate things very, very quickly, because these kids in this age range, they're dysregulated because it's like out of their control, right? They couldn't rein this in if they tried. And remember, let's talk about the arc of a tantrum. So a tantrum looks like an arc, right? If you were looking at a piece of graph paper, and I divide it into like quarters, right? Or no, thirds. So there's like a third of the way up, and that is the spot where you may see it coming. You may be able to distract. And by distract, I don't mean give them the thing that they might want, or like, okay, I'll fix the sandwich. Okay, I'll get you a different cup. Okay. It's not placating. It's like, oh, hey, you want to go outside? It looks like you're getting a little riled up. You want to go outside and count the yellow things? That might be a really good distraction, right? Get some breath, get outside, change the scenery, change of everything, not giving in. Now, sometimes we see it coming. Some kids go 0 to 60 and we don't see that first third coming into a tantrum arc. Once you get past that point, and you'll get, if you don't know it, you'll learn it really quick. Your child is not distractible. They're on a track, and that track is to Tantrumville. Now you have the peak of the tantrum. Yes, that peak tantrum right at the top is inconsolable, and you shouldn't say anything, and you shouldn't do anything. You shouldn't try to manage it. You shouldn't try to bring it down. It's just got to run its course. Yeah. And I think in the past, I've done a graphic on this where I divided them into quarters, but like in my head right now, I'm envisioning it, and I think thirds make more sense. Now, on the other side of the arc, you have the come down, and you can usually hear this. Their tears are starting to subside. They might be catching their breath. They might need a hug. They might come over to you. And that's when you might open your arms, let your child hug you, hold them. You can say soothing words, I'm here. It's okay. We're good. Yeah. Okay. Take a breath. Those kinds of things. Monotone, kind of like low pitch, like I'm doing right now, even toned, no big deal. And let your child get to full breath. And then as it peters out, that's where the co-regulation is coming in, right? That's where the co-regulation is happening. And that is where your child will come back to a baseline. And then you can say, okay, great, let's go. You want to step outside, or you want to finish lunch? Whatever move on. Do not go back and try to teach the lesson as your child has just co-regulated. Do not do that. Right? This is the same thing as when they go to settle their bodies in their room. We do not want them, feeling shame, reliving it, going back to that place. Like, just move on. It's the best thing. They know something big just happened. You know something big just happened. Just move on. So again, you're not ignoring it, but nor are you feeding it. And I think that's the biggest point I want to get across. When a kid is tantruming, we can escalate it so badly by trying to intervene, by trying to make it better, by trying to say, and I know it's like, it's one of those moments sometimes where I find this in parenting, maybe you do too. Sometimes I open my mouth and my mother comes out and I'm like horrified. It's like, oh my God, where did that come from? Like the deep recesses of my psyche. And I can even feel like my mouth pinch in the way my mother's did. And these can be one of those moments I feel like where we can hear our own mothers come out, right? Which is like, you know, oh my goodness, I just cut the sandwich the wrong way. You can finish it. It's the same thing. It's the same sandwich. Like we try to justify the fact that we did what we did that made them lose their shit. And so be cautious not to do that. Yeah. And I think we're well beyond the point. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, certainly you're not be quiet before I give you something to cry about parent, right? I think if you're listening to this podcast, I think our new danger is not overdoing it, is like over gentle parenting. Yeah. Dissecting everything, examining every feeling, examining every thought, having to think about things, having to talk it out, having to process. I think we're overdoing it and we are, going down a bad path of entitlement of like my feelings. I should be happy at all times. My feelings take priority. And so I think that's not a great path to be on. So once again, as I've said, we're all charting new territory. So we'll probably overdo it and underdo it and fuck it up, but we repair and we learn and we keep going. And I'm dying laughing. Pascal's going to be 18 in 3 months. I'm like, geez, by the time you feel like you really got it figured out, it's like, it's done. I mean, he's always going to be my kid, but he's, we're past the hard parts. So yeah. Okay. Now let's look at the slightly older group. Let's look at and these are rough ages. You guys don't mark this on a calendar. Like I'm saying somewhere around 30 months onward, tantrums should start to subside. Again, hunger, tired, overstimulation, and or just these huge overwhelming feelings, right? They should start to subside as your child learns like socialized behavior, right? Like we don't throw ourselves on the floor for every feeling we have. And again, there's like a progression. It's not hard numbers. There's not hard facts, but definitely by the age of 3.5, 4, we should see a huge reduction in tantrums, maybe once a week and short-lived, big feeling, big outburst. And that is that. And again, control the things you can. Hunger, tired, and overstimulation. Those are all things under your control. You can always leave a place if your kid's overstimulated. These are things that are under your control. So take care of those things. Do not be the mom who says, oh, he's just doing that because he's tired. Then get him off the playground and go take a nap. Like that doesn't make any sense. Don't let your kid be out in the world if you know they're overtired. You know they need food. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to other people in society. Now, but these kids get a little trickier because the tantrums can be learned behavior. Yeah. And so we want to cut kids slack in that 16 to 30 month range. That's where it's really vital that we hold space. That age is not really appropriate when I've talked about the settle your body in your room strategy. There should not be a loving separation at that age because it's so beyond the child's control. And so there's something there and you should be able to be present for it. And again, if you can't regulate, if you crawl out of your skin when your child has a tantrum, you've got to fix that. Yes, because they are very, very natural. Okay. Now, the older kids, what do I mean by learned behavior? So that's the example I always use about being in the supermarket, right? The full week's worth of groceries, you're waiting in line, you don't have time to not go grocery shopping, and they put the candy right at eye level. The kids start screaming for candy. They scream 3 times. You say, no, no, no. You're exhausted. You don't want a full tantrum. So you say yes. No emotion, no guilt, no shame. Your child has just learned that 3 screams get them what they want. They will hold out for 6 screams later. Okay. So we have to remember we're always teaching. And so a lot of times in our busy schedule, our, stresses of daily life, of just parenting has gotten so stressful, you guys. And we have every modern convenience and we're killing ourselves by kind of overdoing everything, in my opinion. I mean, there's a myriad of factors, but, especially having to work so much, financial crisis for sure, but it's, it's crazy. So I understand how it happens, but we have to really be cautious. And if you've been doing this, we have to pull the pendulum in the other direction, right? So if your child is, definitely over 3.5, 4, 5, having meltdowns all the time, mostly because you've said no, or, they kind of can't get what they want and they've learned that this is a strategy. This is up to you to figure out, because certainly there are the kids that are under 8 years old right now are particularly sensitive. I don't know if it was the pandemic. I don't know if it's a backlog of just the toxic soup we're living in. I don't know, but they are very, very sensitive. So I don't mean to say like every tantrum over 3.5 is absolutely manipulative, because it's not. But you have to be the judge of this. And I think that we have a pretty good gut feeling about this when we're in it. And you have to be honest with yourself. Have I been the parent who has said, no, 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 yes? Has my child learned this as a skill? It is a skillful thing to be able to get the thing you want and to pick up like, okay, well, if I just scream loud enough, I get the thing I want. Like that is that, right? So you have to be honest with yourself. Have I created this, and can I change? And, am I willing to change it? Because yes, you can change it. These older kids, this is where we would start using that settle your body, because a lot of times these kids are throwing a fit. They are having inappropriate behavior because they think it's going to get them something. Whereas the younger crowd isn't really doing that. The younger crowd's just having like a huge feeling. And again, you have to be the judge, but I generally feel like parents are usually dead on with their gut feeling about this. They're like, oh, they're just kind of being like difficult. They're being a little creep. Yes, they can be. And I think that's missing from this ignored tantrums too. Yes, kids do have big, overwhelming feelings, even our 3.5, even our 4-year-olds, but we do have to start having socialized behavior at some point in time. And we know developmentally that these kids should be beyond that full-blown tantruming phase. Yes. Now, I delineate tantrums and meltdowns and throwing a fit sort of differently, right? So I think tantrums are those incontrollable younger crowd things. I think throwing a fit is that more like manipulative thing. And I think a meltdown is when a kid's strung out, overwhelmed, overstimulated, and needs help. Yes. So in my head, those are very different things. And I can clearly remember what they look like. Meltdowns look weepy. They look soft spaghetti-ish. They look limp in the body. They're like, help me. Yes. Whereas I think throwing a fit looks like they're coming at you toe to toe. And I feel like tantrums just look like, what the hell just happened? Right? But that's when we would use that go to your room strategy. And again, that's not necessarily, if you can hold space, it's not necessary to have that separation. It's when you can't hold space, when you are arguing with your 3.5-year-old, when you feel triggered, when you start to see red, when you know some shit's going to come out of your mouth that is going to be more damaging, that's when you want a loving separation. And we always try to separate ourselves first. Yeah. So I might say, okay, I'll be right back. I'm going to set my timer for a minute. I need space because I'm getting very angry and I just need a little space to myself. Absolutely. That is ideal. When you can do that, go to the bathroom, cold water on your face, collect yourself and be like, I am the grown up here. Come on, act like it. Let's go. And then go back out. And your child, this is excellent modeling for your child. Your child can see you get angry, see you take space, see you come back, and then you guys can work on repair. And that can be that. Now, there are kids that won't let you do that, right? There are kids that will freak out if you go to leave the room. You can offer some silent, can we sit and breathe? Can we sit here and breathe? If it gets out of control, this is when we do the loving separation and the child can go to their room to settle their body. And this is not ignoring a tantrum. This is not abandoning a child. What the child cannot be hurting you, hurting themselves, hurting siblings, and be flailing about in the middle of the house. And this is, I'm talking about more extreme circumstances, you guys. So this might look like, like you're trying to make dinner and the child's throwing things at you. I mean, I see very, very extreme versions of this. That's when, okay, you might have to surfboard your child to their room. Why don't you settle your body here? And this is actually good because when the child's out in the milieu, in the community of the house, there are all kinds of activating things that can amp things up, that can escalate the behavior. Certainly you, because you probably caused it. So you talking, you being, you carrying on, no matter what you do, you're probably wrong, right? So it can escalate the child. And I mean, through the child's eyes, I don't think you're probably doing anything wrong. It's just, it's one of those moments where the child's so escalated, whatever you do is going to be met with more escalation. Those are the times we want to use the settle in your room. And again, you're you're not ignoring, you're saying, please have your feelings, have all these feelings and have them out here. So in your room, so you can stay safe and be with the things you love. You can play, you can calm down and come out when you're ready. And again, the key component here is that they come out when they're ready and you don't say a word to them. They just come out. That's it. So yeah, I hope that clarifies. There are no scripts for tantrums. There are no, there's such a wide variety, again, of the style of tantrums, the age of the child, what's really going on behind it. And I do maintain, though, that we really, ideally, we're all fucking calm parents and like, yes, I can hold space whenever my child, but we're not. We're just not, And so I think it's better to strive for things like when we know that it's uncontrollable big feelings, like we got to get our shit together. We got to be there for that little one wholeheartedly, whole brain, and not be triggered or activated or out of our own bodies. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing. I think once a kid starts, in with learned behavior and it becomes sort of something else, a little more manipulative, a little bit more like that throwing a fit, I think it's a little bit different and it's more common, I think, for parents to lose their shit there. But I think it's clearer boundaries as to how to do the loving separation. But again, before you send the child, if you have the opportunity to take yourself out of the equation, I think that's always better. It's just not realistic if you have other kids, your spouse, other things are going on in the house. And again, if your child is super duper escalated. All right. I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions about tantrums, let me know. And yes. And also, guys, don't forget about the Oh Crap Cafe. That's $15 a month. It's my community of parents. We're doing live video chats. We're doing Q&As. We can ask me any parenting things and I'll address it in a post or video. We're having a blast and I'm recording a video for them on EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, which is known as tapping, which is a great tool in these moments, these like tantrum moments, these hard moments where you have the sense to pause, like, don't react, don't say something, but you're still kind of frozen in a little bit of like trauma of your own stuff, And so tapping can be such a good resource. So I'm going to be doing some videos on tapping in the community. And if you want to join, I'll put the link in the show notes, or you can always just go to jamieglowacki.com and join that. And that is taking the place of Patreon. So if you're a leftover Patreon member, we emailed at least 15 times, but I know some people just never check their emails. So get out of Patreon and join us at the Oh Crap Cafe, because that's where we shifted the community. It functions just like a Facebook group. So it's cool because you can post your own things. It's not just me posting and then you commenting. It's like a true dialogue, and we're just having a blast there. So I hope you guys want to join. And as always, I appreciate you. Rock on and have a beautiful day.
Okay, bye everyone. Just a reminder, if you need additional resources, I have Oh Crap Potty Training. I have Oh Crap, I Have a Toddler. Those books are available everywhere you want to find a book. You can also go to my website, jamieglowacki.com, where you can book private sessions with me, buy any of my courses. Those are really geared towards potty training help. And also I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook anymore and I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, jamie.glowacki, and I do a lot of lives and usually posting a lot of good information. So those are extra resources for you. And as always, rock on. Have an awesome day.